Hey everyone, Justin Holland here with the Mad Insurance Show, making a difference in insurance. We're so glad that you're joining us here either over the radio waves or online through our podcast. I've got a special guest that I'm going to introduce here in just a minute. We'll go over some breaking news as well, probably kick off our visit together with that breaking news and kind of process that a little bit. But we can't thank you enough for joining us. And remember, the Mad Insurance Show, making a difference in insurance, is where we talk about everything insurance. I've talked about auto insurance, homeowners insurance, commercial, employee benefits, Medicare, ACA individual plans, life insurance. We're trying to just create value for the listeners out there and just talk about stuff that, people just don't talk about or know that they have access to or available to them to protect their family, their businesses, their loved ones, valued employees. So we're going to dive into the show right now. Remember, we've got Texas State Insurance Services. That is our health insurance division where we focus on Medicare, individual health, employee benefits. You can reach us at that number if you have any questions at 210-880-5316, or you can visit us at Palmetto Life Group for life insurance, long-term care assistance, financial planning as it relates to Social Security analysis. A lot of people are missing the boat on that. And we've added the auto, home, and commercial lines of business as well. We're very excited to get that up and running. The number for Palmetto Life Group is 877-357-5316. And the websites for both companies, txstateinsurance.com or palmettolifegroup.com. We've got 4 locations around San Antonio to meet with you at, and 1 in the Rio Grande Valley located in McAllen, and hopefully more coming your way as well in Deep South Texas. So without further ado, I want to talk about what we're going to discuss on today's show, and it's ICHRA. And a lot of people probably on the show or listening to the show might not know what an ICHRA is, but that's okay because I've got a special guest today that I've met over the years in our industry, and I've had her join us so we can dive into ICHRA, what it's about, how it could possibly help you, what it's going to look like in the future. And I'm pretty excited about that. And I've got Marnie from Zizzle, and she's going to introduce herself. Marnie, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me, Justin.
I appreciate it.
I'm Marnie Staley. I am with Zizzle Health. I'm the regional sales manager for the entire state of Texas. And I have been in this industry for over 20 years. So well-versed in employee benefits.
You've got some stories.
I have plenty of stories. And it's been a wild ride this past year for sure, Justin. But really happy to be here and talk about ICHRA, which is Individual Coverage Health Reimbursement Arrangement. But thank you again for having me, Justin.
No, you got it. Give us a little bit of background. I know you've been in the industry a while. You've worked with carriers before. You've engaged the ICHRA situation. How is this different that, what you're doing now with ICHRA compared to, broker engagement or the other carriers? Does that make sense? Is that a valid question, I guess?
It is a valid question. So Zizzle is actually, I'm just the technology platform, Justin. So that's where it's a little different. Zizzle isn't a provider, isn't a health insurance company. We're really the platform that houses all the pertinent information for the employers and their employees to shop for the coverage that is right for them. And so it is a little different because this is individual coverage, but almost like a group chassis, which is the beauty of the Zizzle Health platform. So you have the opportunity actually to pick a plan from multiple carriers, which is very different from traditional group health insurance.
See, and we're going to dive into that throughout this show. This has been probably, and Marty and I were venting about it, I guess, in the lobby of the studio here a little bit about the challenges that have been taking place for, and it's not just group benefits or employee benefits; it's individual health, Medicare, you name it. It's been difficult, and it's we as brokers and agents and providers, we want to have those solutions, and sometimes we've got some challenges. But I think ICHRA is really going to come in and help the employee benefits sector of the business and industry. The jury's kind of been out on tax credits and incentives, and I think that will get through at some point because we need some alternatives. I mean, these 50%, 80%, 100% increases
Yeah.
are just are crushing.
Yeah,
I
it's not
mean,
sustainable, Justin.
no
It's really
question.
not. Yeah, absolutely.
There's no doubt it's broken. Before we dive into the ICRA, I like to try to do breaking news. I mean, I had breaking news almost every week, and it seems to hit every Friday morning when we record the show. And I had asked Marnie a minute ago. I said, "Hey, did you see the news that came out like within the past 24 hours on the Affordable Care Act exchanges increasing their exposure for families?" And she's like, "No, I hadn't seen that, Justin." I'm going to pull up, just some experts here. We'll talk about it briefly, but let me read a little bit of this article that I found on Common Dreams here: Trump, Obamacare plans, and deductibles. And this is what it's saying, and hopefully we'll have some more feedback and some more details to provide you on next week's show. But the Trump administration is proposing new regulations for healthcare plans purchased through the Affordable Care Act exchanges, which has been a little bit of chaos, not a little bit, a lot of chaos, exchanges that on the surface could offer patients lower monthly premiums. Great. That's premium relief. Okay. So I like that. I think, Marty, you can appreciate
Yeah,
that too, right?
absolutely.
However, the New York Times reported on Thursday that these plans would make up the lower premiums by charging deductibles as high as 15,000 for individuals and $31,000 for families, meaning that the people on these plans would have to pay significant upfront costs should they get sick before getting any benefit from having insurance. I got some insight on this just by reading those few sentences, Marnie. What's your take on something like that?
It's just not sustainable because people are not going to seek care if they're going to have to pay out of pocket up to $15,000. So they're already paying higher premiums, and a lot of people can't even cover a $500 unexpected
Oh, yeah.
medical cost, the average American. So to put that much pressure on these individuals and families is just not sustainable in my opinion.
And again, a lot of the news that comes out this time of year and prior years, comes to fruition. A lot of the stuff sticks. So this is the time to get prepared, whether it's an employee benefits plan that you might be offering, considering individual plans. I remember, and I brought this up on one of the last shows we had a few weeks ago. I had a client say, "Hey, is there high deductible plans, 30,000, 50,000?" He had asked this, but he had the means to be able to afford,
Right.
the higher premiums too. But I was like, that's a great question. I haven't seen it yet. Now I've got an answer for him. Say, hey, this could be coming. But that exposure, um, I think can be a lot because how does the prescription drugs play into that with all those costs, that people have? The doctor copays, inpatient and outpatient surgeries. If you've got to pony up that money, you're going to be struggling even to pay a lower premium. It's like, okay, if I'm going to have a lower premium here, but I've got to cough up this exposure because we are absolutely living longer lives. We're not necessarily living healthier lives, is what almost say on every show, and that means something. That's cost to insurance. So, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, and there's these costly drugs. I mean, the reason people are living longer too, Justin, is because they are coming out with better
You're
drugs,
right.
better procedures. So people are living longer, but it's also gonna cause people to go bankrupt, quite honestly. And the uncollectibles that these facilities will have to deal with, the doctor's offices, then they come back to the insurance companies and want a different contract with higher
Yeah.
rates, which then that means higher premiums. So it all unfortunately, at the end of the day, it's the member that suffers from it all, and that's what's really sad.
I mean, high deductible plans, the fact that we're already at 5,000, 7,000, 10,000, and then you've got these maximums that can be right or very close to that on the individual plans. This is going to be something that we really want to closely monitor, see what it looks like, because it's going to impact individual plans. And believe it or not, it'll impact the ICRA arrangement that we're looking at. So we got to get creative off of that in that discussion as well. But I'm trying to scan through this article that I found. A $31,000 deductible is unacceptable. People are writing. This is a Republican long-awaited plan. This is not health care that helps Americans. I would agree. I think I've been real critical over these past few weeks that the current administration should have extended the expanded tax credits for that middle class that just got rocked on that. They didn't. And now when Trump RX came out, I've talked about that. We've looked at that. Hey, great. That could work for some people, but you can't use it in conjunction with health insurance now.
Right.
It's just there's a little bit of disarray. One more thing I'll throw in there too that we've got to keep an eye on is the Medicare cost. I talked to this was a few shows back. You know what? This was the news that I had with Blanca a few weeks ago, and it was the Medicare reimbursement from CMS. The carriers were expecting, 6, 7% increase, and CMS came back and said, no, we're probably going to make it 1.9,
Yeah.
something like that, or point 0.9. It was crazy. And the stock market, tumbled on the news with that, with those carriers. So, I think we've got our work cut out for us, Marnie, on, providing those solutions for our individuals, for these companies. And I think ICRA is going to be a player in the alternatives that we look at, now, because I called you a few days ago and said, hey, we got a client that we got to start strategizing this now and have the playbook and maybe a game plan to go into the 2027 and the next 36 to 48 months. I think we want to try to plan out for that as well. Um, Industry news impacting employer plans. We just talked about this: rising group premiums, employer cost pressure, the defined contribution models that are out there. I guess one thing that I want to talk about and make sure we're clear on is basically the regulatory ICRA adoption. Do we see any changes to ICRA that I think will benefit the group employers now? Can you give us some insight on that?
These are ACA compliant plans. For the applicable large employers, the ALEs, Justin, we will do the affordability testing to make sure that they're providing minimum affordable coverage. So we help with the compliance with the clients and the employers, and so it really is another great solution or potential solution for these groups that are facing the 30, the 40% renewal increases, and there's lingering health conditions. It really eliminates the volatility of renewals because if you have a high cost claimant, that's not going to happen in the ICRA world, right? I mean, the risk pool is really spread out. And so that's really a benefit of ICRA. So it's really is a viable solution. It's not for every group,
Hmm.
obviously, but it really enrollment doubled in 2025.
Really, ICRA nationwide.
Yes,
Okay.
and Texas actually was the number 1 state for quoting ICRA. So
Okay.
it
Cool.
really is becoming popular. Now, quoting versus actually enrolling in the
Engagement.
ICRA is, there can be a challenge there, but I think as people learn more about this potential solution, that it is about employee choice, it is about being budget friendly for the employer. And like I said, getting rid of that volatility at renewal, I think this really can it's only gonna get more popular, I think, Justin.
So let's dive into a little bit. I've got some bullet points that we'll talk about in a minute on employer education
Okay.
in that segment. But really, just the dynamics of an ICRA is ultimately, instead of offering a group benefits plan where we have an underwriter in most cases, take a look at that risk. And sometimes there could just be one employee on that census that unfortunately is going through a medical situation. It might even not be an employee, it could be a dependent that creates significant exposure and risk and elevates those premiums collectively on all the other employees, the company that's helping subsidize those premiums as well. But this is ultimately going to say, okay, this employer is kind of done. I say kind of done, not necessarily totally done with having to go back and forth and exhausting these renewals every year. And they can say, hey, listen, we're going to have a finite amount that we're going to contribute to our employees' healthcare. We value our employees. We want them to have affordable insurance if at all possible. But they're going to go out and maybe select from, 6 different carriers out there, not necessarily the one that the employer bring. Can we kinda dive in on that dynamic of how this works? I know I kinda teased this a little bit right now with my description, let's talk about that, the ICRA in relation to individual plans and a group plan.
Absolutely. So on a traditional group insurance, the employer's going to pick one carrier, maybe 2 plans, 3 plans, 4 plans, and then the employee's stuck, obviously, with that is their choice. They have to use that carrier, they have to select one of those plans that may or may not fit their needs. The beauty of ICRA is the employee goes on to the Zizzle Health platform and sees, to your point, 6 different carriers, maybe 120
Yep.
different plans to choose from. They're gonna find the plan that meets their health and their budget needs. So I it really is about personalization and giving your employees that choice. Um, One of the sayings we say is why buy the pie? Why buy the entire pie when all you need is a slice?
I like that.
So that's what ICRA really does. It again, budget friendly to your point. We can ask the employer, "Hey, how much do you want to spend on the employee medical benefits?" And then Zizzle Health can help back into a contribution strategy that will work with that budget. And so it really is budget friendly of getting rid of the high renewal increases and then about personalization and employee choice.
And it is an adjustment. And, if you think about it, because I wish I had a dollar every time somebody called the office saying, "Hey, I'm losing my employer sponsored coverage, but you need to get me a PPO network plan," stuff like that. And it hasn't changed, and just a lot of people just don't know and realize that, the individual plans, you're subject to an HMO or an EPO network. There are some states where you can get PPO network plans.
There are.
The trade-off, though, is the higher premium. So I would say there are absolutely states, if you live in that state, by the way, that you could take advantage of a PPO individual plan. True health insurance, not health coverage. It's a whole nother situation there. But I will tell you, most doctors have been being accepted by some of these major carriers. You've got some new individual health insurance carriers that have entered the market here in San Antonio, proper South Texas, Imperial, WellPoint. They've come in with some of their plans. You have Oscar that's been around for a while. A lot of people haven't heard about Oscar. I personally have Oscar.
I do
That's
too.
do you? Okay,
I
cool.
do.
So we're in the same boat. And they took really good care of me. We mentioned I'd brought this up on the show. I had a health scare last summer, and I'm using the same carrier and product that I have hundreds and hundreds of clients enrolled in, and man, they took care of me, when I needed it. So that was a breath of fresh air. A lot of people get concerned about that, but we've got multiple carriers out there. There could be more. I don't know. You've got different deductibles and maximums, limits. You've got some with copays. We have expanded bronze plans where, maybe the employee just knows they're not going to go to the doctor very often, but they want that copay for the doctor or specialist and the urgent care. So, I'm just seeing this could be that breakout year despite ICRA having significant growth last year, in Texas specifically. I think this is gonna be an impactful year for that demographic in health insurance.
Right, and it's not just for small employers, Justin. The reality is some of these larger employers are really looking at this as a viable option. Back to your point about renewals and having to shop it every year and, look at the different carriers, negotiate with the underwriters on
Oh,
that
yeah.
renewal. You don't have to do that with ICRA. The all we do is ask the employer, "Do you wanna change your contribution strategy?" And then the employees can go through open enrollment again at the end of the year and they can select the same plan or a different plan, maybe because that plan didn't meet their needs. But you really eliminate that back and forth on the renewal and shopping the renewal. It's easier on the brokers and it's easier on the group.
Well, we talked a moment ago, before we started recording the show about, group plans are gonna possibly have to make up losses for those group carriers for Medicare and individual health and group, collectively. So we could see another spike, another tough year for group enrollments going into the following year. The ICRA, I'm going to want to dive into, how the reimbursement kind of works.
Sure.
But before we talk about that, I think this was important to bring up too: employee portability and choice. We just brought up the fact that there's hundreds of plans, that they have access to, but that also, gives the flexibility to the employee to keep that plan if they part ways with that company or there's some downsizing within the company. That gives some peace of mind where they're not scrambling. They're already in their plan. They're running with it. They can keep it throughout the year. If there's no employer contribution, they could possibly qualify for a higher subsidy. If that unfortunately is the situation where they got laid off or they're, taking a break from work for whatever reason. So I like that flexibility as well. But let's dive in. How does the reimbursement look like? Every employer is going to try to ask, "Hey, okay, I'm interested. You got my radar going. How does this work? How do we manage it?" Can we dive into that a little bit?
Absolutely, 100%. And that's the beauty of the Zizzle Health platform. We make it look and feel like a traditional group payment process. And what I mean by that is we determine the contribution strategy. We know the employee picks whatever plan they want to pick, and then the employer knows how much they need to take out pre tax payroll deduct from the employee's paycheck. We pull that one payment from the employer each month. We set up virtual bank accounts for each of the individual employees where we fund those bank accounts from that payment we're pulling from the employer. And then we're paying the individual carriers on behalf of the employee and the employer each month. So all of this is done within the platform that makes it really seamless for the group. So it's really like a traditional group payment process.
I can see that helping making sure, and I'm not saying every employer does that, but sometimes you miss a payment or something that, gets crossways with that. You guys are taking care of that, payment to the carrier. And then the other flip side to that coin is the individuals. Sometimes they wait until the very last, minute to pay that premium. Sometimes it's too late and they lose coverage, but you guys are helping manage to where that stays on track.
We are, and not only that, Justin, but Zizzle does premium payment audits each month on every group
You all really? Okay, I
to
didn't
make
realize that.
sure that we're being charged correctly, that we're paying correctly, so there is no lapse in coverage because that's really important in the individual coverage space.
So that's a breath of fresh air for most employees. I'm sorry, employers and employees that you guys are helping manage that to make sure premiums are paid, everything's accurate, plan selection. It's a digital program. Actually, let's segue into that. I mean, it's is it through an app? Is it through an online access? How does that work?
It's online. It's an
Okay,
online portal. Each employee will receive a link, a unique link to them that will bring them to our portal. It is mobile friendly, like you can access it from your phone, but it is an online process and they'll be able to, register on our portal. They'll see exactly how much they're getting from their employer, so they'll see their ICHRA contribution funds. Then they're gonna see all the plans that are available and how much the premium is and how much will come out of their paycheck if they pick that particular plan. So and we also have a lot of nice filter options on our platform, Justin. So, like you were talking, what if I don't want $10,000 out of pocket max? Well, we have a filter where you can bring that down to,
very cool.
7,000 or 6,000. So it really helps narrow down the choices. So, and again, EPO versus HMO
Hmm.
versus POS, they have the ability to select or unselect that so they can really narrow down the choices and
For
find
the
the plan.
doctors and the medications
They
and
can
all
put
that.
in their doctors, they can put in the hospitals, they can put in their medications. All of that is done right on our website, so we try to make it as easy as possible.
Just a quick note for the audience listening as well. When an agent broker like myself is helping look at individual plans, it's really important for us to make sure we have the correct spelling of the doctor's names. The exact dosages of the medications. Because believe it or not, those little details can keep us from seeing or making sure that a doctor's in network or a particular medication. Believe it or not, just the a change in the dosage might adjust its formulary for the medications. So a lot of times we'll look at a medication on a comparison for an individual plan, and we're like, God, I know that medication's covered. And then sure enough, we had to double check the prescription drug dosage, and that typically eliminated it. Although sometimes, the medications aren't covered,
Right.
that's where we look at discount programs off of that as well. Let's talk about um, eligibility, reimbursement. We've kind of discussed already how you guys manage that,
Right.
but it, this is something that I wanted to dive into, and I don't know if I had this in my notes. The discrimination. I hate to say that word, but you can get creative on an ICRA platform. Can we talk a little bit about how an employer and a broker can work together to get creative with ICRA?
Absolutely. So, one thing that is different about traditional group and ICRA is these are age banded rates. So, obviously, the older we get, the more expensive the premium is. But we can do there are eligible ICRA classes that we can do a different contribution strategy for. So, what I mean by that, Justin, is let's say you have employees that are salary and you have employees that are hourly. You could have a different contribution strategy for those salary versus the hourly. ICRA will allow part time. You can offer coverage to part time employees. You can have a different contribution strategy for full time versus part time employees, but we can really get creative. We can even offer ICRA alongside a traditional group plan for eligible classes and certain size requirements. So it really becomes a very strategic conversation between Zizzle and the broker producer to really come up with the strategy that's going to work for the group.
Um, Something that this just popped in my head as well, something that's important is when you have, let's take, for example, when COVID went down, there's a disruption in employment. People might not have been able to hire somebody locally and they considered somebody out of state, remotely. And some states have different requirements and all kinds of stuff, whether it be retirement or health insurance, all of that. For those companies here that are listening to us and are interested in the ICRA, I think it's important for us to bring up the fact that this can provide flexibility for when you have employees that could be abroad, could be I say not necessarily abroad, maybe they have a residence or home in the states, but they have that flexibility, to be space specific for their employees, right?
ICRA is a great solution for geographically dispersed groups, Justin. So you have a company that is here in San Antonio, Texas, and they have employees in California that really want to be on a Kaiser plan. They can choose a Kaiser plan because that's the plan that's available in their area. So it really is a good fit for those groups that have employees all over the country
Yeah.
because ICRA is available in all 50 states except for Hawaii now, Justin. They're not allowing it. They just had to be different.
I didn't realize that.
That
So
just happened not too long ago.
okay, no
So,
kidding.
like, they're just not allowing it.
Huh.
So, we can't, do ICRA in Hawaii. But, any other state, we're licensed in all of them, and we can do business in all of them. And, it's really a great option because, like I said, employees are picking plans that are available in their area, and again, that will meet their needs versus just this blanketed approach of, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and this is the plan you get, and you're stuck with it.
This just popped in my head because it was we were having an issue with a carrier on, cost, and I put the two parents of a family on a particular plan with United, and then I put the three other children on a different plan. Excuse me. Do we still have that flexibility with the ICRA?
Not yet, but
Okay,
it's coming.
got it.
It's in the
So
works.
I wasn't sure on that, and that just popped in my head. So that's important. We've got to look, and we'll have flexibility in the future to where you can do. And I will tell you, after the situation I just went with this client, that might not be the way to go after all, because of the issues we were having, specifically billing is where it was an issue with the carrier. But I'm glad we brought that up. You would have the flexibility in the future, hopefully, to where you could have parents on one plan or children on another plan, or maybe one particular child needs to see doctors specifically to one carrier, and you've got that. You can't do that with a group plan.
Nope.
So that will be cool when that brings up as well, or when we have an update from Marty and Zizzle on that. Excuse me, I got a little coughing spell here. So I wanted to remind everybody you're listening to the Mad Insurance Show, making a difference in insurance. I'm your host, Justin Holland with Texas State Insurance Services and Palmetto Life Group. Remember, Texas State Insurance Services, health insurance, Medicare, individual health, employee benefits, 210-880-5316. Or you can visit us at Palmetto Life Group regarding life insurance, long-term care, Social Security analysis, auto, home, and commercial lines of business. That number's 877-357-5316. Just in case you've got some questions regarding your personal insurance, or, give us a call at Texas State Insurance Services regarding Zizzle Health and the ICRA options that we've got that we're discussing here with Marnie at Zizzle. And this is exciting because I'm really looking forward to us probably this being the year where we get some a significant engagement. The jury was out, and we were trying to see. We thought things were going to get fixed ACA wise. Didn't happen. So I think ICRA is going to be a great option that we need to consider for small, medium, and large size skilled companies as well. So we can't thank you enough for joining us on the show, and we're going to dive back into our ICRA cost and pricing and employee economics. So budget and predictability versus group renewal. We kind of discussed that a little while ago on the fact that you're not going to have to fight it out with a group benefits carrier using an ICRA because it's going to be individual plans that are age band rated. The price is what it is for the employees. Okay. Employer contribution design. We talked about that a minute ago on how you can get creative there. Class structure. You talked about full-time, part-time, salaried. Is there any tax treatment advantages or saving scenarios that
These
we
are
need to talk
all
about?
pre-tax. So Zizzle only shows off exchange plans on our platform, which means obviously employees do not qualify for subsidies,
Mhm.
but the employer and employee are using pre-tax dollars
Okay.
to fund those premiums.
Got it. So off exchange, just so the audience knows, a lot of people will say Obamacare, Affordable Care Act, Marketplace, whatever you want to call it. You have plans that are on the marketplace that you can get subsidies or, premium assistance and even cost sharing assistance on those plans. Off exchange look very similar. They almost mirror the marketplace plans, but those would not qualify for a subsidy. I will tell you some of those plans, and Marnie, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Sometimes you get a little bit stronger or a lower deductible, a little bit more valued benefits in those off exchange plans than you do with a traditional on exchange plan, right?
That's correct. That can happen.
Okay. So we've seen that as well. Um, have you had seen any real time, recent cost savings for some of your new clients that have engaged? So can we talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. And that's what we do at Zizzle when we ask for the census from the group, Justin. We really do want to take a look at how much the employer's contributing today, how much the employee's contributing, what is the total cost of the insurance is costing them today. And then we can bump that up. We call it a cost savings analysis, is
Mhm.
our proposal, our quote. We really can bump that up to what is, something comparable on the individual side and really show the true savings. I mean, we've had some groups that have saved $500,000 a year. That really was because it is
I believe it.
back to your point, Justin. These are individual policies. There are some HMOs, but the whole point of the HMOs and the smaller networks is cost savings.
Yeah.
And I will say some areas of the country are a lot more competitive on the individual market than others, like
Right.
Indiana, Ohio, Georgia. Those areas tend to be a little bit more competitive. Here in Texas, it is a little hit and miss. But I think it's only going to get better as the popularity of ICRA grows and that membership grows and that risk pool gets spread out. Hopefully those premiums can stay at a lower cost point where it really does become a significant cost savings for the employer.
Let's talk about the getting better part. You bring that up, and that my radar goes up again because I remember we've gone through multiple administrations with the Affordable Care Act. And just so we're clear, the Affordable Care Act, the ACA, Obamacare is all encompassing of health insurance. It was one of the biggest pieces of legislation in its time when it passed. So it had its domain over individual, even some Medicare stuff, group benefits, and reporting and all of that. Where I'm going with this is when the Trump administration got into office, first off, it was, "Oh, repeal, repeal, and, we're gonna get rid of it," and it's like trying to rearrange the deck chairs on the top of the Titanic. You just can't get
Y
rid of it and sink this thing. You gotta try to make it better, and I think their administration during that time said, "Hey, you know what? We're gonna make it better." And I was like, "Okay, this is great. This is great news. Let's make it better." There just hasn't really been anything to make it better, and I where I'm going with this is I think the current administration can really do some good with ICRA support, going into this year, and by the way, these legislatures, they can switch things, they can do executive orders. I've seen them do it with the Affordable Care Act in years prior, where they can extend special enrollments, they can, add subsidy benefit, they could provide incentives to ICRAs. So I'm hoping that legislatively, Marnie, these jokers in Washington finally, say, "Hey, we got to help out this health insurance situation."
Well, and it really is like, how do we make it affordable? How do we get rid of the uninsured? The employers that just aren't offering benefits
Hmm.
today. So there is legislation out there by states and obviously, US based that say, let's give the employer tax credits if they enroll their employees on an ICRA plan.
Significant ones should be
So I
done.
think that's coming. I really
Okay.
do, Justin. Some of it has been proposed out there and kind of carved out of the big beautiful bill, but
Yeah.
I think it's still out there and will become a reality someday.
And I guess I'm selfish. I'm focused on the insurance business and our industry and trying to help our clients. But, these legislatures constituents are really hurting right now. And, we just talked about this offline, all the craziness that's going out there. You got, potential Iran war, the stock market, you've got healthcare costs going up, Venezuela. There's so much noise out there that drowns out some of the really important stuff. And that's why I'm passionate about it, Marnie, because I think they could very easily, I say easily, I think they could swiftly implement some items that could give some people some relief. And I think tax credits would be huge for these small, medium, and large employers that want to help their employees. And don't get me wrong, there's some employers like, hey, we're struggling. We got to cut costs. We want to help our employees, but do we have to do this at the detriment, of our company and trying to keep this rolling? And I'm talking about family businesses that have been around for 30, 40, 50 plus years are struggling to provide that assistance and subsidized coverage for their valued employees.
Absolutely. And so that's why we want to help employers, Justin, is for them to be able to offer something, right, to their employees so they can retain that good talent and they can attract that good talent. ICRA is a great solution for those groups that just aren't simply not offering anything today. But also for those groups that struggle with participation. So the
Yeah.
beauty of ICRA is participation requirements don't impact rates and underwriting like traditional groups. So, for those restaurants, for those hotels, for the home health agencies, for the transportation firms that, some of these people are like, I can't afford it,
Yeah.
I don't want it. And then the employer struggles with participation, they can really turn to ICRA for a solution.
I agree. I think those industries and the whole other thing too, the the lob a grenade into this conversation is AI. I mean, how that's going to affect, and I think it'll strengthen the ICRA format and platform, no question. I think that will definitely help. But the disruption that employers are going to have to face, I think ICRA and the AI. I mean, AI is going to provide that disruption, and we don't know. I don't. I think some professions could be mine are in jeopardy, with the AI, and we've got to provide that value because I still think people need assistance. They want to talk to somebody. They appreciate coming to one of our local offices. Hopefully, that doesn't go away as
Well,
well.
and we really at Zizzle, Justin, really we are the broker is our partner because we believe that the broker is key to the group's relationship, compliance, and just all the other products that are available out there for the employer. Like a producer is and a broker is very important in the relationship, and so we really value that.
I'm really glad that you're saying that because I mean, just yesterday morning, I was with a small employer. I mean, I say small. There was 100+ employees, and a handful of those individuals, we were doing some Medicare education and Social Security. Some of them were in a really tough spot, got enrolled. Some Medicare agent got them enrolled in a Medicare plan, when they could have possibly stayed on their group plan, or they weren't educated on what their Part B premiums were going to cost. And now they've got this statement for $2,000 from the Social Security office. You know, a lot of brokers won't get down in the trenches and try to help with that, along with all the other stuff that we do with the NICRA or the group benefits or the ancillary options off of that as well. So, um, it's exhausting, sometimes or
It
some
is.
days, but I mean, we're helping a lot of people. I had a discussion with a business partner, that I work with a few weeks ago, last month, and, he goes, "Man, are you happy? Or I mean, what you doing here?" Because I could probably be doing better financially, in other parts of the industry and market, but I reminded this individual, we're helping a lot of people.
You are.
We're really, that there's some, and we're not gonna get rich by, doing this. We're gonna make a living, but there's a lot of people that need help, and we've helped them, and we're trying to do more off of that. So
It's
it
like what you said in the beginning, Justin. It really is about protecting these people, protecting their finances, protecting their health. So, to us, the broker is key to that relationship, and we really value that. You mentioned Medicare, Justin. I'd love to talk about how we treat Medicare in the
Yes,
ICHRA world. Could we maybe
please.
talk about
Yeah,
that?
let's dive into I'm so glad you're bringing that up.
So, Medicare aged employees are actually not allowed to enroll in an ICHRA plan. And that's because Medicare is available.
Yeah.
So what we do is help them, or if you're a broker that does Medicare, you're welcome to do this yourself, obviously, is get that employee enrolled in Medicare. The beauty of ICHRA is the employer can still contribute funds to that HRA that the employee can use to reimburse them for those Part B
Yeah.
premiums. And so it really is a win win situation. The employer's getting that Medicare aged employee off of the group
That risk,
benefits, that
yeah.
risk, which a lot of
Even if
times
they're
it
healthy.
is. Yeah.
Even if they're healthy, but just that age bracket
Exactly. It's
applies that.
gonna it's a ping to that
Yes.
group, it's not a positive ping.
Agreed.
But then for the employer then to still be able to offer that contribution to that employee is, like I said, it's just a win-win situation.
Let's take that a step further. So, and on other shows, and we're not gonna go into a whole Medicare dissertation here, but you typically have 2 options, right? I said let's call it 3. Stay on a company plan, maybe just get Part A, and coast there. If there's an ICHRA in place, then you'd go to the other option, you'd go enroll in Medicare A and B, and you'd either get a supplement plan for the medical and a prescription drug supplement, okay? Or you'd get a Medicare Advantage plan. Most Medicare Advantage plans are 0 a month or 0 premium, so that's that much more savings and support that ICHRA would provide that Medicare eligible, or they might not wanna do the Advantage, they might wanna go a medical supplement that has an added cost, but that ICHRA is gonna offset, that cost of what would be the Part B premium or the supplement plan. Let's call it $150 extra on top of that. That's huge.
And those Medicare plans are good plans.
Yeah,
And, the premiums are pretty reasonable. So a lot of times, probably say 95% of the time, the employer's contribution is covering the total cost of those
I
premiums.
agree, and I mean, you got me worked up because we're gonna talk about some clients. I'm gonna talk about this to clients after the show in the coming weeks. That's huge for giving them the flexibility to get on a supplement plan versus Advantage, and let's just talk about that real quick. When you on a Medicare medical supplement, Plan G plan, is probably been the most popular out there. There are some other options as well. If you wanna see or I say you if you want to, you can see any doctor that accepts Medicare, okay? You're not subject to a network. So that provides that peace of mind for those, Medicare eligible employees knowing they're gonna have a great plan, they're gonna have peace of mind, they can see any doctor. It's probably gonna be stronger coverage than what they could get with the individual or a group plan in most
Absolutely.
cases. They're gonna be subject to a $298 deductible, something like that. I always get confused on it. Under $300, so that craters that exposure off of that, and that's pretty exciting. I see that as a huge advantage going into the next new year as well.
Absolutely. And I just think, ICHRA is relatively new, Justin, right? I mean, 2020 is when it launched.
That's right.
I kind of think of it as, do you remember going back to when they first released the HDHP, the high deductible health
Yeah.
plans, and people are like, "What is this high deductible health plan with an HSA?" And it really took a while to get traction with
hmm
that, but now look at how many groups are offering high deductible health plans. I
And
mean,
that's
it's almost
another
a
secret
staple.
too. I mean,
It
that
is.
ICHRA is going to complement those high deductible HSA opportunities as well, correct?
Absolutely,
I mean,
absolutely.
that the triple tax advantages that you have with an HSA, now don't get me wrong, it's not for everybody. Some people don't have a choice but to get on an HSA eligible plan based on cost. But over the years, I've had clients say, "Hey, yeah, I've saved up $80,000,
Oh, absolutely.
serious
Well,
money
and
in
then
these
for
plans."
those people that wanna retire early, Justin, the biggest concern and cost is health
hmm
insurance, right? So if you can build up that HSA, it is some peace of mind
Oh,
as
having that
you.
war chest of cash to access it, and I always have to remind myself, you can reimburse yourself years down the road for medical costs from that account. You
Absolutely,
don't have to touch it because maybe that's
absolutely.
growing interest, in whatever way you're putting it. So, that's a whole nother,
Oh, I
topic and
know.
show too on the HSAs.
Another great benefit of the ICHRA, Justin, is, you can allow for leftover funds. So as a Zizzle employee, I'm on an ICHRA plan. Zizzle's very generous, and I picked a plan that was less expensive than the amount of money that Zizzle was allowing me to spend for my medical.
Mhm.
So I have leftover funds each month that accumulate in this HRA that I can use for qualified medical, dental, and vision expenses. So my contact lenses were
Yeah.
paid with those leftover funds.
Okay, cool.
So you can allow for that flexibility as well. The employer can decide to allow for it or not allow for it, but it is a really another nice option with ICRA to allow your employees that choice again if they want to pick that. I'm still on a decent plan. I'm really happy
Yeah.
with Oscar, but allow them that choice of if they want to have these extra HRA funds and maybe they don't go to the doctor that much, so they pick a, higher deductible, lower premium plan, and then they have this safety net of these leftover funds that they can use for. I used it for a dental procedure that I needed to have done, so it really it
Yeah,
again,
dental
another
can get
benefit.
expensive quick.
We won't go
Yeah.
there.
So we'll both have a fit of nostalgia on that. But that is huge on the flexibility that we've got with ICRA. And that's why it's so important and why we're gonna really, make this a critical year to entertain it. And it might not be the best year to make the change to an ICRA, but at least we've got our game plan,
Yeah,
to
and
incorporate
that
it.
that first year, Justin, I'm very transparent when I talk to brokers and their clients. That first year is gonna be different.
Mhm.
Employees are not used to shopping for their own health plan and having 100 options or 80
That's a
options,
great point.
but, we have support available, and then as I said, the platform helps to narrow down choices, but it is different. But once they go through that first renewal, so they go through the initial open enrollment
Yeah.
process, they can experience it, they have a week to select their plan. Once they go through that first renewal, it really the retention rate is really high with Zizzle, with ICRA,
Yeah.
because the employers love that they don't have to shop it anymore. The employees love that they're getting a choice, and
Yeah.
personalization. So, but that first year, it's going to be a little different if they're on a traditional group plan today.
As a broker, sometimes I'm that bad guy that comes into a group when we have to switch carriers or there's a disruption there. And listen, I take my licks. No, there's no question about it. But you'll have employees that are, and sometimes they're key employees, and they've got legitimate concerns. I will tell you what's fun, Marty. I'll tell you, just try to be funny here. Is a lot of times some of those employees are critical of me or the carrier or the plans we put in place, and then they see what we're trying to do long term or trying to make these adjustments. They're like, "Hey, I get it now." Now I understand. And they become best friends,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, we actually visit with them quite a few. Some of my most staunch critics in sometimes these groups that we've helped out have grown to trust us and say, "Hey, Justin, I need to talk to you on this, or can you help me out here?" That's what makes it fun too. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
When we are able to provide a solution when it doesn't seem like it's maybe the best option or there's some resistance there, but we come back and stick the landing, for the company and those employees that are needing the help.
And we've done research with Deft Research, Justin, on groups that switched from traditional group to ICHRA.
Okay.
And we have found that they're just as satisfied, if not more than
Okay.
satisfied,
Cool.
from a cost and just a selection process. So we really do our due diligence to make sure that this is working
Hmm.
for employers and employees. And so we like to do research each year actually on how this is working, what can we do differently with the platform or making the experience better. But overall, employers and employees are very well satisfied with ICHRA.
The one thing that I'm going to want probably some details on that because we're going to have clients, ask about that engagement. But the before I forget to bring this up, and we're going to do show identification, and we're going to wrap up. We're almost done with the show. It went by quick. The is the fact that you've got the HMOs and PPO plans out there. Okay, I see the PPO going away at some point. I think there's going to be a day that this is just not going to exist, and then you're going to have to pay those exorbitant premiums on a group plan for an HMO network. You might as well get a head start and look at that ICHRA and look at those EPOs and the HMOs or the POSs. There's a point of service plans out there too. It's a whole nother topic on those plans.
Right.
But I think we need to prepare that PPO network that my generation and prior are so used to getting phased out. Is that
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I always kind of chuckle, Justin, when people are afraid of HMO or they want that PPO with like, do you want to look at a network that has 20,000 doctors? And you're like, where do I begin to
mhm.
find the doctor? Or, it really, can we focus on HMO where maybe it is more about quality than quantity? And so people, I think it's one of those buzzwords that kind of has this negative connotation, but it doesn't have to be that way.
No,
And I
you're
think we
right.
just need to pivot and be ready for it.
There's a ton of fraud out there in healthcare. You know what I mean? And I think having that narrower network where you're right. It's kind of hunker down with our doctors and our networks there. The reimbursement structure, it can get fixed. I don't know if it's fixable or not, but I can be optimistic and think it will be as well. Everybody, you're listening to the Mad Insurance Show, making a difference in insurance. And we've had a special guest here. Marnie from Zizzle is my special guest. She basically oversees the state of Texas on ICRAs with Zizzle. And we've been talking about ICRAs pretty much for the show, as well as we went off on a few tangents there as well. But if you want details on a ICRA for your small business, let us know. Reach out to us. You'll see details wherever you see this video online, or if you're listening to this radio and you're like, Justin, I can't, write anything down. Just think of Texas State Insurance Services. You can Google us online and let us know, and we'll get together with Marnie at Zizzle and we'll take a look at an ICRA option for your company and your valued employees. And I think this is going to be the year where you want to reach out to us if you're listening to this, because it's going to be, I think it's the future of maybe fixing or sticking some type of landing on affordable insurance for these group plans with what we have to deal with on individual markets. It's not for everybody, but I definitely see some value there. And before I wrap up the show, Marnie, can you just kind of exit us out on why to consider the ICRA and try to line up an appointment with us and Zizzle in the future?
Yeah, absolutely, Justin. Thank you. It really is about being budget friendly for the employer. And then it really comes down to personalization and choice for the employee. Why buy the pie when all you need is a slice?
Yeah.
So it really gives the employees their choice, their option for a plan that fits their budget needs and their health needs. And it just really is it's not a solution for everybody, but it definitely is a viable solution and could be a really good solution for some of those groups out there, employers out there.
I think we've discussed multiple, scenarios where the ICHRA can come into play. So if you're listening to the show on the radio, you can go to our YouTube channel in the next few days, and actually you can go to youtube.com/at Mad Insurance Show. And if you miss some of the details that Marty and I were talking about on ICHRA, go to that show, take a look at it. We got some great insight that you might have missed if you're just tuning in online or on the radio, and we'd love to visit with you about that. Again, the Mad Insurance Show. I'm your host, Justin Holland. I have Marty from Zizzle over here next to me. Thank you so much for coming in
Thank you
and
for
joining
having
us.
me, Justin.
I
This
thi-
was great.
I think we did some damage. I think we got some awareness out there on ICHRA. And remember, Texas State Insurance Services, everything health insurance and employee benefits if you need it, 210-880-5316 or txstateinsurance.com. And don't forget about Palmetto Life Group for your life insurance, long-term care, Social Security analysis, and even now auto, home, and commercial lines. It's not a 210 number. It's an 877-357-5316, or visit us online at palmettolifegroup.com. We can't thank you enough, everybody, for joining us. Marty, we'll see you again soon.
Absolutely, Justin. Thank you.
Take care.